we're seeing this huge eruption of agentic AI, which is where you ask it to go and do a
Mm.
task for you. It's all computer based right now, but there is a world very soon, I think, where you can have an agent in some kind of robotic form go and accomplish a task for you around your house, kind of like Rosie from the Jetsons.
Welcome to the Talking AI podcast, where we talk AI with both experts in the field and early adopters. I'm your host, Matt Paige, and we're here to demystify AI for you so you can get some value from it. Let's talk some AI. Adopting AI is hard for one core reason. Humans are lazy, we don't like change, and that's why building new and novel habits takes so long. But lucky for all of you today, we have Celia Quillian, Director of AI and Growth on Greenlight's innovation team and the author of AI for Life, a book that breaks down how anyone, regardless of background, can integrate AI into their daily routines. She's also been featured in publications like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Forbes, and Time. But welcome to the show, Celia.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and by the way, I love Greenlight. They're local to Atlanta. We're a local Atlanta company as well. My daughter feels like a little adult every time she's, shopping or whatever, and we can, handle all the making sure she's not spending it on something random, which is just a really cool product, kind of an Atlanta darling here. So awesome to have you on.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I love green light too. I think it's so great that we're allowing to give more financial literacy to kids and teach them about smart spending early instead of later.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's funny too. My daughter's like, she's 8 years old, but Sephora's like this big thing now where all
Oh,
the kids go
yes.
to.
Hmm.
And, she doesn't need makeup. So she's getting like lip gloss and things like that. But it's kind of funny to watch. Uh, but, to start, I'm curious, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into AI, both in as a career and on the creator side, which has been, I think, an interesting development as all this craziness has happened, especially since the ChatGPT moment a couple years back.
Yeah, sure. So I think at some point in 2021, maybe I joined some kind of a wait list for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe it was Dolly. It was one of the two of those. And so when ChatGPT launched, I immediately joined it. Late 2022, started playing around with it, and thought, "This is so cool." It was this constant magic moment. And I, had the 3 days of late nights chatting with it to see what it was
Mhm.
capable of, and really quickly realized this new innovative technology is going to be everywhere very soon. And of course, we saw that ChatGPT, broke records in terms of how many new users there were within the first month.
Mhm.
So after a couple of months of playing around with it and chatting with people about it, I learned, oh well, not everyone is adopting it as quickly as I would think they would in my circles. And I had always had a affinity for video production and storytelling. My background
Mhm.
is actually in theater, so I
Oh,
thought
cool.
this is a great opportunity to share with the world what I'm learning as I learn it. So I started a little TikTok channel back in March 2023. And really rapidly, it took off. I was sharing tips about just, everyday use cases of how I was using it to travel plan, to meal prep, to all of these different things. And as I was sharing more about it, my channel grew and grew. And I just got even more into understanding what new tools are launching, what they're capable of. And through that, just kind of self learning pattern, I developed a career in this AI space as well at Greenlight. So I was, giving talks at Greenlight, teaching people how to adopt it. And now we're employing new technology at Greenlight as well. So that's kind of like the long and short of it. Just a passion driven, curiosity driven approach to AI. And here I am.
Yeah, it's funny too. I feel like back in the beginning, it was this like magical kind of moment, but it also wasn't very good either. So
No,
I
it
feel like there were
wasn't.
some people that were like, "Oh, this thing's awful," and they just kind of wrote it off. And I think there's people like you that saw the potential. And I don't think any of us realized how fast it was going to accelerate and improve.
Hmm.
But I think those that, and I think the thing too, I feel like so many people still feel like today, oh, I'm too behind now. But what I like to relate it to, we're at that moment where we got internet, but you still got to use the phone at the same time. You can't use the internet and the phone at the same time. There's so much potential. So I think any folks that are still early on and feel like it's gone too far, you should not take that approach by any means.
Absolutely. Now's a better time to be getting into it, to your point, because they've improved so much. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's still hallucinations and there's still some information that it generates that's not factually correct, but it's gotten a lot better at that. So the noticing that, like, wow, this thing is not so good as it should be has definitely gone down.
Mhm.
So people like
Yeah.
trying it for the first time now, and they can do so many things now too. So multimodal capabilities within all of these free tools are have made it that much more effective.
Yeah, and the stuff you can do for free is getting insane. But like we mentioned, it's inherently I think humans they don't like change, which makes this adoption phase different, especially when you have something that's completely different. Because I think people are used to a certain way of working, and this is completely new and novel from that. But when it comes to like building new habits around AI, what like how should people approach that? Like, what is the you know, stepping stones? How do you adopt the tools when there's like a new tool coming out every day? How would you recommend folks start to go down this journey?
Yeah. If you have never really touched these tools, or you've only kind of touched them in the capacity of maybe you've heard they can rewrite an email in an okay way, and that's the extent of
Yeah.
what you approached it with, I think that the first thing I would recommend is find a free tool. There's a lot of them out there: ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. All of these tools have a free version, and just experiment with it. I think what I encourage people to do is when they are faced with a challenge or problem that they might typically turn to a Google search for, or just any kind of
Mm,
other curiosity or challenge, anything that you need to normally write down or start a first draft on, try using an AI tool first and see how that feels.
yeah.
Just to have it, like, try once a day to attempt that. And then I think the other side of that is, approach it with curiosity. So if it doesn't give you the response that you would hope for immediately, recognize that these tools are conversational. They can call back to what you said previously, and they can receive feedback, much like a intern could, right? So
Yeah.
don't immediately write it off if the first response you get is not perfect. You can actually refine the response by continuing to chat with it. And as you do that, you'll start to learn the nuances of the language that you use and how it impacts the output. So you'll get better at getting a better response in that first go at the more you approach it.
Yeah, there's several like rabbit holes I want to go down there. I think the key thing you said though, it's really it's building in that daily habit.
Mm,
'Cause I have a lot of people that I talk to. It's like, how do you know all these different tools and things? It's like I just randomly am playing with it every day.
yeah,
And I think the thing you mentioned is great. Like just like consciously don't just go to Google, start with ChatGPT, and you'll start to evolve how you approach uh, talking to it. I think the one piece, there's a lot of folks that talk about this whole prompt engineering and uh, this whole new job function that's been created. And then there was some, backlash on that saying, oh, that won't be around. That won't be an important thing. And I've gone both sides on this to where it's like, oh, yes, this is very important. Oh, this will just be a common skill, which I think it will be. But as I've gone deeper into it, I've realized the value of good prompting is very important.
hmm
Uh, and I think, like you've mentioned before, comes down to good communication. It's almost like you're talking to a human. That's how you need to approach it. But I'm curious, like, any tips or approaches when it comes to prompting? How do you think about prompting? And I think the difficult thing is there's tons of different scenarios where you may employ different tactics, but any just top level approaches you take when you're prompting with AI?
totally. Yeah. I think the times that I actually put more focus into prompting with AI is if I am building something for a repeatable task, where it's using,
Mm,
I want a consistent output regularly. So, for example, if I am building a customized wrapper, a customized version of ChatGPT, custom GPT, to
mhm,
create a engaging, compelling TikTok script, for example.
yeah,
There's something that I like to use is the kind of markdown format where you have the little hashtags that kind of give it some structure and format there where I say, this is your job, this is your goal, this is your task. Include a lot of detail and specific context. This is what the example output should look like. But that is specific to those use cases where you are specifically trying to create repeatable tasks. Now I'm at the point
yeah,
I joke where, when you start using ChatGPT or using frameworks, right? You're like, okay, gotta like remember all of these specific things. One of the frameworks that I teach people is Sage Plus, which is specific context, action. So what is the action you're trying to get it to take? What is the goal that it is that you need it to accomplish? And optionally, do you have an example? And the plus
Yeah.
is you can always continue to prompt it. It doesn't all have to be in that first in that first message, especially
Mhm.
using it to chat. Um, but once you move beyond the frameworks, eventually you just begin to talk with it like you're talking with a person. I mean, I rarely type my prompts out
Yeah.
anymore unless it is for the purpose of building those repeatable tasks. Mostly I use the voice to text functionality, just give it all the context it could possibly need and hope that it's communicated effectively enough, and send it off and see what happens. I think for most people, that's going to become the approach to using these tools as well. Uh, but specific context is the most important thing you can have.
Yeah, I think, we've all heard that, content is king. I feel like context is king is the new thing, and I
Mhm.
totally agree. Like, the more context you can give it, I think that's where a lot of people fail when they're working with these systems. They don't have enough context. They are very eager, ready to work, but if they don't have the context, they're gonna try and answer the question, but,
Okay.
just like that's where I think that's another flip people need to make. It's not human, but the more you interact, like, with it like it is human, the better output uh, you're gonna get. And it's funny, like, to that extent, like, I was playing around with Cursor, just building something random over the weekend, and I told it, I was like, "Okay, I gotta go to my daddy-daughter dance with my daughter." I didn't need to tell it that, but I, like, told it that. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna stop here," and I gave it a reason why, and it's no value added to it, I don't think, but I did it anyways. It's just because you start to, like, feel like you are working with a partner in a
Mhm.
sense, which is, I don't know, kind of a weird habit that started to, materialize that I've noticed.
Well, it's so true. I mean, it's like when, for a long time people debated, "Oh, is saying please in your prompt going to give you a better result than not saying please?" I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember that. And I don't know if everyone
Yeah, yeah.
figured it out, but I do think that saying please and thank you in your prompt naturally gets your mindset in a place where you think and imagine that you were speaking with the person that's actually comprehending it
Mhm.
back to you, which
Yeah.
can make it easier when you're providing that context. Because if you think you're just talking with the computer, you're not going to say please and thank you. But if you say please and thank you, you're in the mindset of I'm communicating with an individual that has some level of expertise that may be able to help me with the problem. So
Mm.
that
So it's like a subconscious flip or something like that.
yeah,
And also, like, the running joke too, if, they do take over one day, they'll remember that,
yeah.
Celia was very, very nice and said thank you, so she can live.
Yes, and that kept me up to date with what was going on in his life, and that was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Uh, but another thing you mentioned too, the multimodality piece of it, and I think this is another angle, especially folks that are newer at it. They don't realize all the things that it can do, can see.
Mhm.
And you mentioned interacting with voice, and I've heard some folks doing this. They'll just, and I think this is a great learning way. Like, if you're on your commute or driving somewhere by yourself, just start talking to it and
Yeah.
have a conversation. But curious, like, where's the value there? What unlock do you see with the voice aspect of it versus traditional kind of writing and prompting and whatnot?
Right, so for me, I actually use the advanced voice mode where you can actually it talks back to you like a person.
Mhm.
Well, it's fun and entertaining, and to your point, great on a long commute where where something's top of your head, you don't wanna grab
Yeah.
your phone and search or chat with ChatGPT, obviously, and it can kind of also get you in the mindset of communicating with an entity, right?
Mhm.
My favorite feature is just there's a little microphone in almost all of these tools now that you tap
Yeah.
it and it voice records for you what you were saying, and then it transcribes it perfectly. I think that saves me so much time. I'm a pretty fast typer, but being able
Yeah.
to speak aloud everything that's going on, just kind of do a brain dump, um, and then send it off to ChatGPT and let it consolidate it, summarize it, do whatever I would like it to do with it, saves me an
Yeah.
amount of time. I mean, I get to the point where I record for 5 or 6 minutes saying, leaving a meeting. We just had a meeting. We talked about a lot of things. Here's the detail of what this person said. These are the key takeaways. I'm just brain dumping what just
Mhm.
happened. And it acts like my secretary. At the end of all of that, when I'm jumping around, it's like, oh, and another thing I forgot about this thing at the beginning of the meeting. At the end, I say, okay, all of that I need you to summarize into nice, concise, bulleted notes with key takeaways at the end of this meeting.
Yeah.
Send it off. And I've got a one pager that I could send out to everybody within 5 minutes versus within me, reformatting it
Yeah.
myself, writing it out. So that's a huge unlock. And yeah, that is the primary way that I approach prompting it now because it just saves a little fraction of extra time.
Yeah, and those fractions, they build up over time in a big
Absolutely.
way. And maybe the last thing on prompting, so we obviously build software, so we're using it in the development process, but I'm curious, like, the parallels here. So I was using it over the weekend, and I've taken this journey, which I think a lot of people have, where you say, "Hey, go build me this thing," and then you get in these, like, crazy rabbit hole nests and things, and it just blows up, right?
Mhm.
But I've started very intentionally, and I'll start over with, like, O1, right? Or some reasoning model, pick your reasoning model. And very similar to what you just said, I'll kind of give it the overview, the high level thing I want it to do, and then I'll have it give me very detailed requirements. But before I do that, I say, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah.
And then go through this iterative process to where I get these very nice, tight requirements. Then I go over to Cursor or pick, whatever coding agent you want. And then versus saying, okay, now go build this thing, I have this great list of requirements. I then talk to it and say, "Hey, I'm looking to build this thing. I have these requirements. Let me know what questions you have." Because technically it's new in context for this thing. And technically you could talk to O1 in Cursor, but I did it over in ChatGPT. And then I said, okay, and then once it has context for the thing, let's work together to define how we should approach building this thing in what order. And then it's logically thinking through, okay, well, here's, the architecture I want to build based on these requirements. This is the order we should do it in so we don't screw things up later. And what you've done is you've given AI context for what you want to build so you can work together. And it's just amazing how much better it is. And I think I've seen you talk about a similar thing. It's almost yeah, I think you called it like priming AI. But curious, like, and for any folks before I forget that are interested on the coding side, there's an amazing, I guess, called a blog post. This guy that wrote this thing, how to stop saying "f you" cursor, and he kind of talks through this whole process, very similar to this, where you kind of got to flip how you interact and think with it. And there's a couple folks that are really getting deep into this. We have a framework called generative driven development where we're doing the same thing. But talk me through your thoughts on like the priming of AI that I've heard you talk about before.
Yeah, yeah. I talk about pre-prompting it and then also to your point, the asking it, am I forgetting anything? Is there anything else you need to know? Both of those be great to give you the additional context that you don't know you need to have, right?
Mhm.
So the pre-prompting element, the priming is, if you're trying to, I think I used in my example a LinkedIn post. If you're trying to write a great LinkedIn post and trying to get started on LinkedIn, talking about your career,
Mhm.
talking about whatever, maybe you don't know how to write a great LinkedIn post. You don't know
Yeah.
what hooks people in. You don't know what compels them to like or comment or whatever. You could ask ChatGPT in the chat to begin with, can you create me a guide to writing the most effective LinkedIn post to drive engagement from this kind of audience and effectively grow my professional brand? It will create a guide for you and it'll have a lot of tips and tricks of how to format it and everything else. And then you say, okay, great. Can you write me LinkedIn posts about this now? And you just go into your,
Yeah.
it's the topic you want. And then it's pre-primed on this is the context that I need to follow for this particular kind of LinkedIn post they're going for. And then to your point, be asking it to ask you questions. I talk about this a lot in my book. It gives you that extra layer of, okay, there's probably something I've forgotten that might be
Yeah.
valuable for it to know. And you can even say like for your use case, acting as the software engineer, ask me about any technical requirements
Mhm.
that I might have forgotten. Acting as the ideal user, ask me any questions about what I might be considering from your perspective, and
Yeah.
all of that can provide additional information that you can use to create something better. That is, I think, a key thing that I think people that are hesitant about adopting AI or scared about AI forget is that, and I truly believe this, that AI is not going to take everyone's jobs. Uh,
Mhm.
but someone that knows how to effectively collaborate with AI is going to be better off than someone that does not, because effectively using AI is about that collaborative approach to it. It's
Yeah.
not, okay, I'm going to send you one thing, you send it back, and we're good. You've got to continue to build with it. You've got to continue to collaborate and brainstorm and bounce off each other, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And I think you mentioned another thing too. It's kind of priming it with the persona that it should have. But you can also change its persona too. I've
Mhm.
done that before
Yeah.
where, okay, you're an architect now. Now you're a software engineer, or now you're a strategist. Now you're a product person. Now you're a copywriter. So that also just gives it, again, context for how it should act.
Mhm.
And you mentioned at one point, I've gone back and forth in my own mind on this. Like, is it going to take jobs? Is it going to enhance jobs? I've gotten to this point where I feel like those that adopt it will be, far and ahead the winners in this. So go adopt it. The deeper it gets, I do feel like it is going to disrupt some jobs, but
Mhm.
I do
Yeah.
feel like also it's going to create new opportunities, jobs that we don't even know that don't exist today.
Oh, absolutely.
Is the other thing, but I don't know. Like, maybe give me your take. Pick your time frame: 5, 10, 50 years. Like, what does it look like? How are we interacting with it? What does the world look like as this, to the, topic in your book? It's not just pervasive in work, but like in your life, it becomes native, like we use our phone or whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, man. Even going out more than a year at this point is it's like it's
I know,
just
right?
not like
Yeah.
science fiction. I mean, already we're seeing this huge eruption of agentic AI, which is where you ask it to go and do a
Mhm.
task for you. You know, it's all computer based right now, but there is a world very soon, I think, where you can have an agent in some kind of robotic form go and accomplish a task for you
Mm.
around your house, kind of like Rosie from the Jetsons. Like, I don't think that's out of the possibility.
Yeah.
Next, certainly in the next 50 years, maybe even the next 10.
Yeah.
I think that the workplace is going to look very different. I think that using generative AI tools is going to be akin to how we approach using Google or email today, very quickly, like in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
If you're I think right now a lot of businesses are in a place where they're still trying to figure out what their policies are generally around AI
Mhm.
usage. So we're not quite there yet, but I think within the next 5 years, certainly most of them will have figured it out because it would be foolish not to. There's just too much productivity
Yeah.
gains to be had. I do think it will disrupt some industries. I do think that it will also um, help a lot of industries be more efficient. I mean,
Yeah.
customer
Yeah.
service is one that people think, that's the first one to go, but there's still a lot of customer service roles that I think are going to be necessary because they have some like highly sensitive information they're dealing with. You know, you don't want
Mm.
to pass information through an AI to a certain degree, but there are going to be parameters where these are the situations where you can use generative AI to help with tickets. These are the situations you can't. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's going to sound like something of sci-fi if I go too far into the future.
Yeah.
So,
It really is. You wonder how quick we get there, if we get there, what it all manifests into. And you mentioned the customer service. I was playing with this this weekend when I mentioned I was building something.
Mhm.
This tool called Bland AI, and there's lots of these, like 11 Labs and whatnot. The voice tools, they do something cool though. There's this kind of architecture they have on the back end where you think of traditional IVR, you have to define like each, thing that may happen. If this happens, then you say this, then that.
Mhm.
This structure, you're giving it more so guidance for scenarios,
Mhm.
and then it has the LLM attached, so it kind of knows, what direction it'll go. So it's really interesting to see how, these new architectures and approaches are starting to manifest. But you mentioned in the workplace, and I've seen organizations that are on the bleeding edge of this and they're adopting it. And I've seen some that are just way behind. And I'm just curious, what's an approach you think that works? Maybe how is Greenlight approaching it? Because I think sometimes there's this analysis paralysis that happens within,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
large organizations, where they almost can't get out of their own way to start adopting these tools because it is so new, disruptive, unknown. But how should organizations be thinking about this?
Yeah, and I mean, at Greenlight, obviously, we have a dedicated team, the innovation team. In addition to all the projects we're working on, we are the ones kind of at the forefront of experimenting with new tools.
Hmm.
While our company is still figuring out where we abide with our, generative AI policy and how strict we are and where, who's allowed to use it for what, we can kind of go in and test these things out. So having a dedicated team that is sourcing and looking at different things and keeping a pulse on what's changing is very valuable. I do think to your point, analysis paralysis is a real thing, especially when you have all of these, generative AI multi-purpose companies that offer an enterprise package, and all of them
Yeah.
are competing with each other. So one day one's the
Yeah.
best, the next day another's the best. Um, I think at a certain point you just kind of have to recognize, okay, we'll pick one for this year at least, and
Mm.
it's going to maybe be the worst one day, but it'll be the next 2 days from now.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
so that you not don't totally lose your momentum. And then I think, effective training of your employee base is incredibly important too, because there are obviously risks to using generative AI tools. And if people
Mhm.
think that it is magic and it's always correct, you're going to end up in a pickle because obviously these tools
Mhm.
can hallucinate. Even the best of the models can, with more advanced mathematics or anything else. And like understanding what data can and cannot be uploaded into these tools from a
Yeah.
privacy standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, is incredibly important. Understanding how to effectively engage and prompt them so that you can make the certain tasks of your day more efficient, and understanding as well from a hiring perspective, like what skill sets are we looking for that generative AI can't do? And expertise is still going to
Mhm.
be important. Um, but there's been a lot of studies where generative AI can have such a skill narrowing capability in the workforce where low performers benefit a lot more than high performers. Like high performers
Mm.
benefit too, but if your high performers aren't learning generative AI, they're going to be surpassed by the lower performers.
Yeah.
So just how to effectively get that training in. So I guess to all in sum, have a team that's experimenting and looking at all the tools out there and thinking about how we might be able to leverage them. That can also speak to when these tools can't do what you'd like them to do.
Yeah.
I think people think, oh, we don't need a marketing team anymore. AI can make all of our images. The reality is they
Yeah.
can't. At least at this point,
Yeah. It's not there yet.
they can't do perfectly branded designs in the way you'd like them to, all of this
Yeah.
stuff. Um, and then, yeah, to have the training accomplished and just pick a tool, like just land on something and don't get stuck in this, which tool's the best today. Um,
Yeah. I've seen some organizations that almost set up like for lack of a better word, kind of a sandbox environment
mhm.
that allows you to play with stuff.
Yes.
And to your point, if there's like, information that's sensitive, well, it stays in the sandbox, but you're allowed to experiment. I think that's another interesting approach. But I think you do like some workshops and things like that. How do you approach those? Like, what do you find that is effective when you're with an audience and you're trying to educate them on AI?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm still figuring out what exactly is the most effective, but I think giving them just a, trying to act positive around it. 'Cause I think a lot of people have a lot of negativity
Yeah.
around it. And honestly, a lot of and this is why I wrote this book, the AI for Life book, is that I think when people unlock that, oh, wait, oh, that is annoying in my daily life. Oh, that's cool. That
Mhm.
will help me. Like they have a little bit less of a negative opinion on how
Yeah.
it can also help them in their work life. So in my workshops, I approach these are the pros and cons. These are the credible things it's capable of. I include many examples, including, the multimodal capabilities of vision and the attachments of data analysis. But instead of getting into a hyper specific, role specific, industry specifics, I'm usually talking to a broad group of people across all,
Mhm.
you know, um, areas of work. And I take it back to the general things that we all have issues with. And I think that kind of start working the questions of, oh, well, could I use it for this at work? And the answer is generally yes, you can. So yeah, trying to
Yeah.
get over that barrier of that fear by applying it to, okay, there's some really annoying things you have to do just every day that it can help you with. And then think of what it
Yeah.
can also help you accomplish at work.
Nice. That's a good transition. Maybe the last thing we hit on, but you've written this book, AI for Life. Like, what pushed you to write a book, and what was that process like? And then I'm curious. It's like I think the I haven't read it yet, but the basis. I think there's like 100 things to start embedding it into your life.
Mhm.
Curious, like what's your favorite?
Oh man.
Maybe top couple of things that you pull out from the book. But what pushed you to do this in the first place?
Yeah, well, my channel Smart Work AI had already started taking off, and a lot of my content is about just like everyday things that can
Yeah.
apply to pretty much everyone. That also again like instantly begins to make you think, oh, what are the other things I can be doing with this? I actually had a Simon and Schuster Adams Media publishing group approached me which was great. They had this opportunity saying, "Would you be interested in writing this book?" We went through the process of the author sample. And I always say that when I was 10, I really wanted to be an author. Like that was the only
Yeah.
thing I wanted to be. I would write for pages and pages and pages beyond the page
Oh, that's cool.
short stories.
Yep.
So I said, well, I have to do it for her. Um, and
Yep.
and of course, it's just a message I wanted to get out there. So the writing process was grueling. It was like every evening and weekend for a few months. Because we also wanted to write this fast. And the writing process, I think the most difficult part though was writing a book that could be evergreen despite the fact
Mm.
that everything is progressing so quickly in this space. So
Yeah.
the first, 2 chapters cover basics of generated by AI, where it came from, how to approach it, what these tools are capable of. It does a breakdown of the kind of leading free multi-purpose tools in the market. And then each chapter dives into a different high-level use case for AI in
Mm.
daily life. So travel, personal life, personal finance, home in the
Yeah.
workplace, and um, yeah, just and each little segment talks about the problem, talks about how you can, what kind of context you would need to include to just help people get over that barrier again, because again, you forget
Yeah.
sometimes what context is necessary.
Well, I think too, like back to the point we were talking about earlier at the organization level, sometimes organizations can't get out of their own way because there is so much policy and red tape and things. But your own life, you have full autonomy over that. So it's a great starting point. So
Hmm.
I think that's a great angle to focus on. But I'm curious, what's your favorite or maybe weirdest
Oh man.
use case from is there one that sticks out in your mind off the top of your head?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, the one I always go back to is just travel planning. That was the thing that got me
Yeah.
like really into this. It got me on the Today Show talking about just use it to accomplish this thing that
Oh, that's cool.
so
Yeah.
much time. There's a whole chapter of all the different things you can do from like, snapping a picture and translating the whole menu into your native language so that you can actually like read it,
Mm.
ordering,
Yep.
and acting as a translator when you're in a foreign country. Um, of course, making a travel itinerary, doing deep research, finding activities that you like.
Yeah.
It can just, I planned a whole one of the best vacations I've ever been on in a period of a couple of hours to a place I'd never
Wow.
been before. And yeah, I think that's one of my like favorite go-tos. And I think a lot of people have kind of unlocked that. I think beyond that, just simple things around the house. Like if you're wanting to make a grocery list, you open up your refrigerator and you tap the voice recording button and say,
Mm.
"Hey, I need you to make a grocery list and sort it by the aisle that it's most likely to be in, produce,
Mm.
dairy, frozen, and just speak out loud everything that you notice is missing that you know you need." And just saves
Yeah.
a little fraction of time, but like you said earlier, those fractions add up. So,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then, like you mentioned, we get the agents coming as well. So now that'll just translate into okay, I'll give it
Oh,
to my
yeah, and
agent.
now
They'll
add it
go.
to my Instacart order and then
They'll
go
go talk to Instacart.
have it delivered.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's awesome. So where can people find the book? Where can they find you? I got the book in my cart, so I'm planning to grab it. But give us the breakdown of how people reach out.
Yeah, so I'm Smartwork AI on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and LinkedIn as well, Celia Quillian. The book can be found online at Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Target, Books A Million. There's one other one that I'm bookshop.org. And then in some Barnes& and Noble's locations, just make sure you like look it up or ask your local bookstore and they can order it for you.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, Celia, thanks for being on and talking some AI with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thanks for listening to the Talking AI podcast. If you enjoyed the show, give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to leave us a review. We love those. For more info on Talking AI, visit talkingaipodcast.com.